start pumping it again. Of course, now you got the problem. You've got your concrete plug. You got to drill that out. So it's a real expensive process, but that you can study all that if you'd like to get into oil production. But the fact is, we do have pressure. It doesn't last long. So two obvious questions should come up. Why is there oil in the ground? Where did it come from? And why does it still have pressure? Nearly all scientists agree that oil comes from organisms, living organisms, that are squeezed and heated. Under pressure and heat, you can convert a ton of garbage to oil in a few minutes. There's a good article in Creation magazine, Creation ex nihilo. If you get the 1990 edition, I believe is where it is. Also, Impact article number 155 are some good ones to read if you want to study. And Eric, you should do this. Definitely read up on oil formation. Scientists can take a ton of garbage and squeeze it into oil in the laboratory in about 20 minutes. They did a test where they took some organic material. Now, the word organic means something that used to be alive. Plants, animals, okay, is organic. Oil is, almost everybody agrees, comes from organic material, plant or animal or human. Under pressure and heat will change to oil. Hitler, it is reported, some of the Jews that were killed, he took the bodies and had them baked to produce oil for his tanks. I don't know, I can't verify the story, but I've had several folks tell me, yes, it's true, that they didn't do that with all of it, but they did it with some to see if it would work. They found it was too expensive to do. Okay, the pressure and heat produces oil. So I don't know what the numbers are, but let's say you can make a barrel of oil for $1,000. You take a ton of garbage, squeeze it, heat it, turns to oil. One person said to me the other day, why don't they make oil that way, cut the price of gas? I said, well, you can drill and pump the oil out of the ground for about $20 a barrel. If they start producing it for $1,000 a barrel, your gas is going to cost, $1,000 a gallon. You better leave it alone. Okay, it's still cheaper to drill it. The fact is, it could be done. It just isn't practical to do that. So oil can form quickly. So the obvious question would be, how did the oil get way down there in the ground? 3, 4, 5, 6,000 feet down. 2 miles down. All over East Texas, they drill down 3,800 feet, I believe is the number, and they get into the seam where all the oil is. They can pretty well count on it. We drill down 3,800 feet, you're probably going to hit oil. In Kilgore, Texas, remember the oil museum? They had 28 oil wells on 1 acre, the size of our property. They called it the world's richest acre. They pumped it for years and finally pumped it dry. Today it's just a museum. Okay, there's no more oil, not enough oil on there to make it worth going after. But Sinclair Oil Company has the dinosaur as their logo because they say the dinosaurs turned to oil. And they're probably right. And these guys drill for oil all the time. Sinclair is still a very valid company, mostly out west. You don't see them much here, but in Arkansas there are Sinclair gas stations, and all over out west, Sinclair Oil Company. The article, How Fast Can Oil Form? Creation ex nihilo, volume 12, number 2, page 30, talks about that. I've got this sign in my office from Sinclair saying that dinosaurs have been mellowed for 80 million years. Now, slow down a minute. Yes, the dinosaurs probably turned to oil, but it wasn't 80 million years ago. I think that all happened at the time of the flood. Very simple. You got a world full of people, full of animals, full of plants. Now you get a flood that destroys everything. The flood lasts for a year. At the same time as the flood's going on, you got volcanoes blasting ash and lava up, and you got all kinds of bad things happening to the earth. You're going to get all these carcasses buried under thousands of feet of mud, sediment, debris, rocks, lava, ash. The pressure, how much does a cubic foot of water weigh? A gallon is 8 pounds. 62 pounds. 64, 62 pounds, okay, depending on what kind of water it is, salt water, etc. If you lay it on the ground, and I put a box 1 cubic foot on top of your stomach and filled it full of water, 62 pounds. Let's stack up 10 of those boxes. 10 feet of water puts 620 pounds of pressure per square foot. Let's stack up 100 of them. 6,200 pounds of pressure per square foot, right?
Now, wouldn't it be different if you were surrounded by water?
If you're down in the water, yes, it's different. However, your eardrum is a little piece of skin stretched across an air pocket inside. That's why when you go down in deep water, the air pressure pushes on your eardrum and stretches it, pushing it in. And you have to go slowly so your air inside your head, in your station tube, can equalize the pressure. That's why when you go up and down the mountains, you have to hold your nose and blow, to pop your ears, to equalize the pressure. Scuba diving, you have that, especially if you have sinus trouble, you have trouble scuba diving because, your ears will never equalize. Who cares, right? Rock weighs more than water, right? Let's say a cubic foot of rock weighs 100 pounds. It's probably a lot more than that, but let's just pick a number. 100 pounds per cubic foot. Let's stack it up 3,000 feet deep. How much pressure is it putting on 1 square foot 3,000 feet down? Is that 300,000 pounds per square foot? That's a lot of pressure. That's for 3,000 feet. Oil is anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 feet down. So the pressure of the rock above is enormous, plenty, and since it's just pressure, pressure produces heat. So you got exactly what you need, pressure and heat, to convert whatever was buried to oil. If they can do it in the laboratory in 20 minutes, it certainly can change in 4,400 years from buried carcasses into oil. So that's where the oil came from. I believe the oil came from the people and animals that drowned in the flood. So I tell them, when you go to the gas station, you can say, "Bye, Grandpa, you should have listened to Noah. He told you it was going to rain." And that's probably what happened to the people that did not listen to the Lord. One more thought here, young earth, and we'll take a quit for the evening. In Denver, Colorado, I was preaching out there, and some guys came to the meeting. They said, "Now, Mr. Hovind, we know you teach the earth is only 6,000 years old. We would like to prove to you that you're wrong." I get this just about every week. You probably will too, right? These guys worked at the Denver National Ice Core Laboratory. Denver National Ice Core Laboratory. It is a section of the Federal Center in Denver, Colorado. What you're seeing here is a picture of a giant freezer. This freezer is enormous. The guys who brought me into this freezer, it's 36 below zero in there all the time. Taxpayers are paying the electric bill, so, set it where you're comfortable. The freezer is enormous. These were the guys that go to Greenland and drill holes through the ice. They also go to the South Pole and drill holes. The Russians are doing this too. They take these, it's called a coring machine. Here's a picture of one here. It's like a pipe. It drills down, maybe a 4-inch pipe. It drills down just the outside. So the center part is not disturbed. It's called a coring machine. I asked them, I said, "Now, when you're drilling a pipe down into the ground and you pick it up, doesn't the piece fall out?" They said, "Oh, no." They showed me the thing, how they do it, the drilling machine. It's got little flaps in there down near the bottom. When they stop turning, as soon as they start to lift up, these flaps come in and catch. So they drill about a 6-foot section at a time. They drill down. As soon as they start to lift it, it snags the bottom and breaks it off. So they pull up a 6-foot piece of ice about this big, slide it into a tube and mark it. This is number, 813 or whatever it was. Then they can go back to the laboratory and put them in order and reassemble it. So they have a huge, long core of, just as if they laid it out from drilling down. The deepest hole they ever drilled is 10,000 feet through this ice with this coring machine. They actually set up a big building over the top to stay warm while they're doing all this work, and they may live there for 2 months while they're drilling a hole, just so they can have some more ice in Denver. Just what they need. But this newspaper article said, in Lakewood, Colorado, a Denver suburb, Associated Press, 10 ice core samples yanked from a remote Antarctic glacier are resting in a giant freezer here waiting to be tested. What do they want the ice out of the Greenland and South Pole for? When they drill down, here's the coring machine. You can see the teeth at the end, how it kind of grips it when it starts to pull it up. I drew these lines on here because you can't see it at this angle, but there are dark and light lines, which I'll show you in a minute. The guys took me in the freezer and they showed me these lines. And here's a photograph of one. You can see the dark and light lines. They said, "Now, Mr. Hovind, up in Greenland, it doesn't snow much, and it's really cold in the winter. In the summer, the snow melts just a little, and you get a layer of water on top. Then it refreezes in the winter and makes a clear layer of ice." Now, clear ice on this picture shows up as a dark line. If it never gets a chance to melt, the snow is going to pack or press down and make a white layer of ice. So they said what these layers represent is summer and winter, summer, winter, summer, winter, summer, winter.